Guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be going over how to care for your Tokay Gecko. And of course, to answer that question, we're going to be going over the 5 main care topics, that being enclosure size, heating and lighting, the humidity, the diet, and then lastly, what to fill the enclosure with. So with all that being said, I guess it's time to sit back, relax, dive into some Tokay Gecko care, and roll the intro. And before we get this video started, if you guys can do me a huge favor, if you did find that this video really helped you out in caring for your Tokay Gecko and you got the information that you needed, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that like button right down there, hit that subscribe button, get this video to more people so people can also know the loving care requirements that it takes for Tokay Geckos. That would be really awesome. Thank you. Let's get into the channel. Kicking off this list, we're going to be starting with number 1, the enclosure size for your Tokay Gecko. Of course, the enclosure size for your Tokay Gecko is going to be dependent on the age and overall size of the gecko. Now, in most cases, we are talking about wild-caught imports when it comes to Tokay Geckos. Unfortunately, not just that much captive breeding is taking place. So as far as that goes, with the adult gecko size, you're going to want anywhere from a 20 to 29-gallon enclosure as a minimum size. So anything like that, the 29, the 20-gallon highs, not the lows. Don't get a low. 12 inches high is not enough for a Tokay Gecko. Of course, them being arboreal. A couple other great choices are either the Zoom In or Exoterra. The 18 by 18 by 24 is a fantastic enclosure for a single adult, so even a pair for the 18 by 24. However, we got a whole video on why you shouldn't keep them in pairs full time. I got a video right there if you want to check that out. However, if we're going into a captive bred specimen, something that stays pretty small or starts out pretty small, anything around the 5 to 10 gallon, but it really depends. So anything like a 4 to 6 month old gecko is usually when people start selling them off. I found 3 months to be really the minimum age that breeders feel comfortable taking the gecko to a new home. With that being said, something like a 5 to 10 gallon, even a small little bin. I've got a couple of bins I use for some of my little grow out babies. Those work great. 12 by 12 Exoterras, one of the 12 by 12 by 12s, work great for babies. So then as soon as they get into that subadult, transitioning into something like a 12 by 12 by 18, and then finally again that 18 by 18 by 24 or equivalent to the aquarium size. Diving into our next topic, let's get into it. Number 2, heating and lighting for your Tokay Gecko. Now let's first start off with heating. Now when it comes to Tokay Geckos, this isn't going to be like your average New Caledonian, the cresteds and gargoyles. Tokay Geckos actually need a fairly high basking temp. Anywhere around the 90 to 95 area is going to be crucial in order for your Tokay Gecko in order for your Tokay Gecko to properly digest its meal. Now there are a couple different ways you can go through with this, either something like a ceramic heat emitter, radiant heat panel, or just a regular basking light. Each one has a pro and its cons. I went in a little bit into this video right here if you want to check that out. But yeah, heating around that 90-95 for basking, and then the high 80s as far as ambient temps go. Now of course, with only 20 Tokay Geckos, the realisticness of putting 20 basking lights on top of every enclosure, it doesn't make sense, man. It's a $600 bill. I did it before. I can't, $600, that's way too much. So I've actually found plan B for this, was actually using ambient temps. So what I do is I dedicate an entire room for Tokay Geckos. I got a couple of more of the warmer tropical or the warmer species, Argus monarchs, things like that, that can adapt to a higher temperature. And then what I do is I pretty much make it to where I have a little thermostat plugged into whatever space heater I'm using, and I have it gradually get warmer throughout the day till it peaks and then gradually drops down during the night temps. So we go pretty much from, I believe the highest is set around 88 degrees until the lowest set around 79 degrees. Works very well. I've been doing it for, almost a year, a little under a year probably now with all my Tokays. There's a couple I still use the basking lights, which is why you see B-roll basking lights, but for the most part, I just use ambient heating and it works out for me very well. Then getting to the second part of this video, let's get into it, lighting. Now, of course, the main thing about lighting, we're going to be going over UVB. With UVB, it's still, I guess, somewhat of a controversial topic. Some say you don't need it, some say you do need it. Of course, some people say Tokay Geckos are nocturnal, some others say they're crepuscular, so, I don't know, do what you will with that information. I give UVB to all my breeding pairs while they are breeding, and then I leave it on for the females. I've got a couple of UVBs lying around, so I have stuff for like my Super Red, my Granite to Oddball pairing always has UVB, and then I have a like nice linear T5 against all my breeding pairs that stay on the bottom of the shelving system. And yeah, I don't know. I always feel like UVB, man, I mean, it's what, 20, 30 bucks once or twice a year, depending on what you get. It's around 50 bucks a year. So I mean, animal's gonna live 10 years. You can't do $50 a year. How much money you make? I don't know. It seems like it benefits the animal. Why not just do it? It literally doesn't cost that much. Yeah. And of course, if you're using anything like I mentioned before, the ceramic heating ember or the radiant heat panel, I do recommend some sort of other lighting to make sure the animal gets not only that day and night cycle going, but also gets some UVA rays. UVB really covers all of that, and it's great for that. However, there are a couple of other things. If you're doing like a planted bioactive tank, some sort of LED unit or CFL unit to create that proper color temperature to make those plants grow is always cool, and they just make the tanks look nice. I don't know what it is. LED makes everything look nicer. You see this? Not that nice. This, very nice. That's the difference LED makes. I want to just get LED for everything, so it just makes the enclosures look mint, man. Then diving into our next topic, let's get into it now. Number 3, the humidity levels requirement for Tokay geckos. Now, when it comes to the humidity levels for your Tokay gecko, they like a pretty relatively high humidity level. You're gonna wanna retain somewhere around that 70%. Pretty much 60 to 70 is the sweet spot. You don't want it to drop any lower than 50. You're gonna start seeing some negative effects. With that being said, there are a couple ways to retain humidity in your enclosure. Of course, sealing some of the screen, making sure you have a deep substrate level, live plants. There are a couple different ways. I actually made a video a while back stating like in depth of how you can raise your humidity to the perfect percentage. So if you have some trouble with humidity, I recommend the video. I just put a card in right there, but yeah, 60 to 70% seems to be that sweet spot. Not too much else to say. I guess let's just move on to the next topic. Diving into number 4, let's get into it. Number 4, the diet for the Tokay gecko. Tokay geckos, for the most part, are insectivores. With that being said, pretty much just a nice variety of different feeders. Anything ranging from crickets, superworms, waxworms, mealworms, red runner roaches, lobster roaches, dubia roaches, if I didn't say that already, black soldier fly larvae. Yeah, just a bunch of different stuff. Now, it does seem, well, now that I have a pretty diverse Tokay collection, I found that not everyone takes everything. For the most part, Tokay geckos really enjoy active feeders, so the two best things I have found are the red runner roaches and the crickets for feeders. I find that the more active and scampering around, that really triggers the instinct and the predatory response of the Tokay gecko and makes them feed a lot better than what would do on, say, like dish feeding. I found out of the 20 of my Tokay geckos, I believe 3 actually will dish feed. Funny enough, they're actually all my captive breds, and then 1 import will feed off dish feeding. For the most part, none of them really do it. It kind of just sits there, and then when I miss, the water gets in there and it saturates the worms and it makes a mess. So I actually don't dish feed anymore. I usually just put in some live feeders every other day to every 3rd day is pretty much my routine. But yeah, try dish feeding if you want. Pretty much crickets and red runners are the go-to I've found for them, and it seems to have the best results when it comes to picky feeding of Tokay geckos. I've also found in my time breeding Tokay geckos that if you find that yours is dropping a little bit of weight, a nice pinky mouse can work with gaining that weight back more quickly than just using these active feeders of crickets and red runners, with them not having as much fat. The pinkies work a lot better. Not saying to use that as a staple. I use it very rarely. Pretty much after my Tokays lay eggs, I like to give them as a treat. Again, it's one of those things that not everyone will take it. Most of my females I actually just don't have a good relationship with for some reason. They don't trust me, so they usually scamper off when I try to tongue feed them. For some reason, it's my largest males that are like, yeah, you're cool, dude, I'll tongue feed off of you, but it's like, you're like ginormous, dude, you don't need any help. I want these Tokays to be nice, so they'll tongue feed off of me, but just not the case for me, unfortunately. Alrighty, we got a pretty good understanding of how to take care of our Tokay geckos. We know, number 1, the enclosure size, the heating and lighting elements, the proper humidity levels, and finally, what to feed the animal. However, we are missing one crucial part of that, and that's, of course, right now, we have a blank tank. What are we supposed to do with this tank, Dakota? Well, don't worry, my guy. I got your back with number 5, what to fill the enclosure with. When trying to figure out what to fill the enclosure with for Tokay geckos, there are two main things to keep in mind. That is the fact that they are arboreal and they are a tropical species. I guess a third one would be the fact that they are crepuscular, so hiding spots would be awesome. With that all being taken into account, there are a couple things I really enjoy. That's going to be cork hides. Cork hides are your #1 friend. However, if you are breeding, I don't recommend cork hides. I recommend some sort of larger PVC tubing, but if this is just a pet, cork hides work great. The animals love them. They feel very secure, and I found them to be a little bit more trustworthy when they had these hides, so instead of just being exposed whenever you open and they immediately like run around and freak out, they're just gonna stay in their hide and feel a little bit comfortable. It's kind of their safe space for that. Of course, with them being arboreal, you're gonna want a couple different branches, ranging from anywhere from vertical to horizontal, so they can have different places to hang out. Even though really I found it doesn't matter how many branches you use inside of an enclosure, they're just gonna stick to the side of the wall. That is just Tokay geckos for you. And then lastly, some nice plants in there, whether that be live or fake, so they have a little bit of foliage. Again, just being a little bit more secure inside their space is super important for the Tokay gecko to thrive. And alright folks, that is going to wrap it up for today. Now, it's your turn. Let me know how I did in this video. Was this the best Tokay gecko care guide you've seen since all the other Tokay gecko care guides, including the one I did last year, or was this one, did this just miss the ball, man? Was it not that good? I don't know, man, and I won't know unless you leave me a comment right there in the comment section. Drop one down below. Let's get into the outro. And as I say in all of my videos, huge shout out to Zen Habitats. If you're unfamiliar with Zen Habitats, they're an aftermarket enclosure maker that make wonderful designs like this one right here. Wow, what an amazing enclosure. Now I believe the 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot option from Zen Habitats is the perfect enclosure for Tokay geckos. Plenty of room, looks incredible, and it's just a nice decor piece that works amazing for the animal, and it covers shipping in the total price. What more could you ask for? It is Tokay heaven. Now, if you want to learn some more about Zen Habitats or potentially buy an enclosure from them, you can find that information right down in the description at the link below. Then speaking of description, we've got all that other good stuff, including Facebook, Instagram, merch, TikTok, and of course, last but not least, Patreon. Patreon.com/dbcdb. Patreon.com/DBCB exact. You get the up-to-date information on everything happening in my business. This includes a plethora of projects that I got going on: Ackie monitors, Argus monitors, ball pythons, crested geckos, gargoyle geckos, Tokay geckos. A number of different things going on. We've got a bunch of stuff. Of course, it's breeding season right now. We are actually just hatching a bunch of Tokay eggs. You don't want to miss it. There's a bunch of perks when you get Patreon. Of course, that behind-the-scenes look at everything that's going on. First dibs on babies, even discounts on babies. There's a bunch of different tiers for a bunch of different folks. Starts as low as $1 a month, which, I mean, $1 a month sounds like a pretty swell deal, if I've ever heard of one. There is one more thing. Your name gets to be in the credits that we are going to roll right now.